So we'll get started. My name is Prabal Acharya. I'm with OSIsoft, and I've been in the Microsoft ecosystem for quite some time. I've been with the company OSIsoft for about 17 years, and prior to that, I was actually with a oil company, British Petroleum, and so I'm in this ecosystem for over 27 years, working in the areas of IoT, analytics, and whatever it was called at that time. Very excited to be here. We'll have a exciting both demos and technical and business pitch today. Along with me is Lily. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lily Wong. I've been with OSIsoft for about 8 years as a system engineer. I work a lot with the federal space, so I work with a lot of government agency in energy management.
So just before we get started, just by show of hands, how many of you is aware of Azure? Like the word Azure, if I say that, do you understand? Just a show of hands. Do you know Azure? Okay. How many of you know that there is actually a government version or edition or special for the US government? Great. And how many of you have ever heard of a company called OSIsoft? Very nice. Okay, that's even better. So, so what we aim to do is that at the end of this talk, we want to give you an idea of what's the area of IoT or Internet of Things is, especially for your domain, your area, and how together with Azure Government and OSIsoft Pi system, we're making it alive or making it live. We'll have live demos towards the end. We'll actually have Q&A at the end, but don't just stay to the end for questions. If you have any questions, just raise it. It's much easier to tackle it at that time. There are some slides that I'm going to go through right now just to get this started, and then we'll come to the agenda. These are the slides that was presented yesterday at the keynotes, the two keynotes, the government, Azure Government breakout, and also in there. So a lot of repetitions, but it's good to get that all settled. So Azure Government, as you know, there's a special one here, just created by Microsoft. And what it is, it's actually a dedicated government community cloud. So, and since you know about this, I'll go to the mate here. 100% of the federal cabinet agencies, and again, you have seen these slides. And but what I like about it is that it's not just for DC or a couple of areas in the states. It's actually available for entire United States. This slide is both public Azure and the government Azure. This is actually showing the Azure regions, and there is twice the amount of AWS coverage in those. There are two DoD regions, two existing regions for the Azure Government Cloud, two new regions that they're building, and 6 times more than AWS. I think that's a good punchline. ExpressRoute. So how many of you actually know anything about ExpressRoute? I've gone very deep. You should explain it. I will come back to this. Actually, we will show you how with Microsoft and with our customers, how we can take advantage of that. But there are ExpressRoute locations that actually coverages this government Azure. Any of here is from Microsoft that actually knows the Azure stuff. So if there's any questions, I can point to you. Anybody from Microsoft here? Oh, there you go. All the experts are here. So just feel free to jump in. These are the Microsoft slides. So if I'm saying anything wrong, just correct it or direct the questions. Any questions on this, the basic coverage so far? Okay. So I'll skip the AWS part. FedRAMP, 32 Azure Government Services authorized. It's a great, we've been noticing it, and our customers have been coming back. So this is a great achievement by Microsoft, and together working with the federal team. And then finally, I like this slide. So the most comprehensive cloud for DoD missions. So I won't go any more details on that. I will actually have demos on Office 365 and SharePoint and Azure Government. Marketplace, we are also in the marketplace. We are on the public marketplace, but this is a dedicated marketplace for Azure Government. We are also going to put our software there, but this is a very good area for you to go and find out software that's relevant to you. And then finally, this is a system that's actually continuously being released. So it's not like they do it one time and then for the next 6 months there is no update. So this is what we like. This has been very, very positive for our customers. So all in all, it's a great story. So let's go from there to show you what we have agenda-wise for you today. So we're going to start a little bit from the top, from the digital transformation in the age of IoT, how you can quickly take advantage of that. And many of you are here, and including myself, and we've done these projects over the years in our companies or with our companies in federal and different areas. And in the past, those projects, those digital transformation, as they call it right now, we used to take months, years. You'll have a blueprint, and then you will follow that. You'll have a plan, design, and then at the end of it, you're not sure whether you will have a success or not. What we have with IoT analytics is that the age of this startup culture or incubation has come back. And we'll show you what we're doing with Microsoft together in that area that you can quickly take advantage of. You don't have to wait for 6 months to get a result. You can have a result in 2 weeks. In fact, some of these things through the marketplace on the Azure will show you how that gets installed in 20 minutes. Lily will do a demonstration of our capabilities on those Azure. So that's kind of our item number one. The item number two is that we'll go deeper into the area of Azure Government and PI System and how that's all interrelated. And then finally, we'll show you how you can quickly take that for your agencies and also for your workloads, both hybrid all the way from your on-premise to the cloud. And finally, we'll end up with some live demonstration. Any questions so far on the agenda? Any other things that you'd like to have us mention so far? Okay, so who is OSIsoft and how we work together? So from this slide, as you can see, we have a very, very close relationship with Microsoft going back all the way almost 20 plus years, and in many cases, even before that. And so that's our CEO, Dr. Pat Kennedy and Satya. So we are coming close on this area of digital transformation and IoT analytics. In fact, next month, we'll be together at Hannover Messe in Germany, where we'll be showcasing inside the Microsoft booth these areas. And so our customers who has data coming in from all their sensors, collects it in PI System, and together in the Microsoft platform, we provide that digital transformation. Going a slightly bit deeper into the OSIsoft, so we have been in the business for 35 years, but it's the customers that makes us that common in the areas. And we have 19,000 sites, and several of them are actually federal and US government customers, and also state and local government. We abstract that data on top of Microsoft infrastructure across many systems. So if you have a building management system, whatever make that it may be, whether it's a Johnson Controls or Rockwell or Schneider, we abstract that data into this thing called PI infrastructure. We collect that data in real time and move it to Azure. If that's what you prefer, it can be on-premise or it can be a combination of that. And then over that, we add what we call as the analytics layer. So that analytics layer, once the data is collected, all the way to the right-hand side, which is we call as real-time reports and real-time monitoring and advanced analytics. This is all done on Azure for this presentation, but it can also be done on hybrid. So what's the unique thing about this for the customer or from a developer perspective? That this end-to-end is not a project. So this end-to-end is actually products and services that you can quickly take advantage of within minutes. So that's the key what we are trying to do. Because we have connectors and interfaces that connects to almost any data, you can send from that data through the PI System, through the Azure in minutes. So that's kind of the key. If you've been collecting data, then you can do advanced analytics. And throughout the presentation now, we'll go deeper into the areas of how we're enabling that with Azure. Okay. So let's set the base. IoT analytics, we talked about Internet of Things, we talked about companies taking advantage. You saw a lot of the names of companies that we work together, partners like Rockwell and all. So what kind of data that you need to, what's the recipe to make a good IoT analytics project? First of all, you need a system that can store the time series data in its fidelity that it came in, okay? So that's the key. So there are a lot of systems for that. But the main thing is that you need to be able to store the data in the resolution that it came in, but at the same time also do abstraction on top of that data, okay? So averaging, looking into the gaps and other things. So, but the raw data is very important. I did a project with a oil and gas company last couple of months ago, and they were actually doing their pump diagnosis with analytics, with Cortana Intelligence today, based on data that they collected in 2006. That historical data was very important for them to actually predict the failures in 2017. So that's the key, is that when you collect the data, don't throw it out, even though you might not need it today, and that's what we tell our customers. And Azure is a great platform for that. Asset framework or context. So a lot of these data that you will get today is based on the pumps or the systems or the buildings or the rooms that you have, on the sensors that you have in place. You need to store that context along with that data. Because who knows, 2 years from now, this building might actually have different sensors. So when you're actually correlating a data from this room, as you are doing it, you will be basing that on the sensor that was available at that time. So you're doing a calculation over 2 years. You need to know the context of that data as it happened. So historization of the context, the asset framework, is very, very important. And we will show you how it actually helps. And then last but not the least is the events, or I call this insights. So you have the data, you have the context, and then you need the insights into that data. The insights can be different things. For buildings, it can be people when they're coming in and coming out. This building might have a profile normally in a normal weekday, but for conferences, it might actually be running up to 9 o'clock. So you need to have that context or the insights actually stored along with that. And I work with a lot of companies in this area, including some of these agencies who have been taking advantage of that. And then finally, just one deep dive. Once you have the context, you have the insights, and you have the data, then it makes it easier for you to do the IoT analytics projects. And how it does, it actually helps you with templates. So you actually templatize a room or templatize a fleet in a DoD, some of the things we are working with, some of the vehicles over there. And there are vehicles they purchase in bulk at that time, and the models actually change. You can actually create a template for that 1,000 vehicles that they have, or 10,000, and then do that contextualization in one shot. You don't have to go and repeat it. Okay? Everything is geared towards getting the solution or getting the answer to the right people at the right time. Everybody can take Visual Studio or your favorite tool and develop this for next 6 years, and that's absolutely true. What we are trying to do is a plug and play. We're providing these templates, providing these tools that you can actually go and take advantage of it. Okay? So we have the templates, we have the asset framework, now we have the data, and now let's go deeper into how we will take one of these models and go and build this. So, so again, you have the data, you have the context, you have the insight, and now you have to think about a couple of things. Taking data from one sensor, or taking data from 2 sensors, or taking data from 1,000 sensors is one thing. Suppose you have millions and millions of sensors that's coming in, millions and millions of data. So so the world, the IoT world, has actually done this very well. They broke this into 3 types or 3 columns. One is called volume of the data, variety of the data, and the velocity of the data. Okay? Volume is the data is that you have million sensors coming in, or the cube of the data. Variety is that one type of sensor is sending data every second. Wind turbine may be sending every 15 minutes. Landing and taking off from an airport happening maybe depending on velocity, or depending on the airport, maybe every minute. Some of the airports maybe even shorter time than that. And the velocity is that how quickly that data is coming in. And there are certain times when the pump is actually opening, you will get a more valve time or pressure. So this thing, let's hear from somebody that I myself follow very strongly, and show them how this world of IoT analytics actually work. With that, we're going to go, as the volume will go into the video. So we're going to hear from Scott Guthrie, Microsoft Executive Vice President, on this area of IoT analytics, and specifically on the volume, variety, and velocity.
You know, the opportunity for all of us in this room to help our customers enable digital transformation has never been greater. You know, specifically the ability to use data and intelligence to infuse richness into every application. You know, more and more data is being created in the world today, and there's an ever-increasing need to be able to derive insight from this data and be able to turn it into intelligent action. And to really achieve that, you need to be able to progress from using data to understand what happened, to understand why it happened, to predict what will happen, and most importantly, understand what action should you take based on it. And with Azure SQL Server 2016, Power BI, and our Cortana Intelligence Suite, we deliver an incredibly rich set of data, analytic, and cognitive services that enable customers and partners to build fundamentally smarter apps. You can store and process any volume, velocity, or variety of data, and run real-time analytics and machine learning algorithms against it.
So, so that's kind of setting it there. So you saw the volume, velocity, and variety of data, and he set it up very well how Azure actually enables that questioning. So all the way from descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. So we're going to go through that right now. So now switching gears, we have betted on Microsoft for about 20 plus years. We have been actually working on Azure for about 4 plus years. What we like, this is the same slide, but you're seeing it now from the public side. But that's what we like in the Azure side. ExpressRoute, I promised you I'll come back to it, and the fiber that actually connects it. We actually have created in city of San Leandro, California, working with the state and local government there. Throughout the city, we actually have fiber loops, and that's actually been connected to the from that lead San Leandro all the way in the Microsoft zone. So we actually take advantage of this fiber as a company. Taking advantage of that. ExpressRoute makes that even easier. As you're closer to those positions, you can have your systems automatically connected to the Azure and do a lot of these data IoT type projects. And then, of course, we'll do that. So IoT analytics, now that we got set that stage, we have this data, we have ways of doing volume, velocity, and variety. We know we want to do analytics, but there are some challenges. Basic challenge is that once you have that data, that raw data, it's not clean, okay? So you start a project, and you can start it, but you will see the fun stuff, looking at the analytics part of it, will actually be coming at the end. 80% of the time we'll be spending in cleaning up that data. We call this data janitorial work. And you might be asking, why is that? Because you just implemented a sensor and the data is coming in. Yes and no, because you're not actually retrofitting the entire system in the world with new sensors. And even if you do, they're not all the same sensors. That's number one. Number two is that there's a lot of legacy data that's actually getting collected, all the sensors and all. That data looks something like this on the left or on this side. And that's what the time series data is all about. In this case, actually, it's the same data that's actually placed for an IoT analytics ready project on the other side through a product we call the Pi Integrator for Microsoft Azure. And that takes that data, that context, that insights, and makes it easier for a data scientist to look at. And you might be saying, he just introduced another word, data scientist, and what is that? How many of you actually is a data scientist or actually know about data scientists? Go ahead, you have a question?
No, I am.
You are a data scientist, oh, wow. So guess what? That's what the Harvard Business Review is talking about. Data scientist is actually coveted jobs in the world. There's very few of them, that's what I hear. And they are spending that time in cleaning up that data, scrubbing that data over and over. And the reason, and I'll come to that reason, but the fun stuff which the data scientists actually do is very, very important. But if we can make their life easier by making that data available to them in the language that they can actually go in with their favorite tool, they're using R or Python or Microsoft Azure Machine Learning or Spark, that's different. That's their job. That's what they prefer. But this is where we come in and make that data available. So that's the punchline, 80% of the wasted time. Again, I think all the things that we're talking here about are either from MIT or Harvard Business Reviews and all the other things. This is not something cooked up. So this is what the data scientists are facing. Yes?
So in terms of the parameters that you set to look at different data, do you just give the program a data set and see what it sees? Or do you actually input parameters that you need?
The question is that do we input the parameters that the data scientists need to see, or there's actually even a set things? The answer is both. So we, because we have been working with a lot of the companies, a lot of the partners, and Microsoft quite a bit. So we actually know, working with our customers, what they're looking into the areas. But also we provide this tool, which Lily will actually demonstrate. It's actually for the data scientists to build their own views.
And the other question is, in terms of cleaning up data, right? I'm a biochemist, molecular biology, and work in data science. So when I'm making all this comparison across, before I do that, I can cover a lot of ground in experiments, perhaps in 2 days, and have thousands of data points that I need to analyze. And the process of cleaning up my data takes 3 weeks. That is an amazing amount of time, right? But how do you teach Cortana what the outliers are versus signal versus noise, for example?
It's a great point. So it's actually a phased approach, and I will show you how the phases actually go in there. Just in a nutshell, remember we started on the data, the context, and the insight. So we go and first make sure that the data, context, insight is ready. Then we have this product, PyIntegrator for Azure, which actually creates the views based on the data scientists that they're working on. So people think that, hey, send this data for the data scientist. No, they're not created equal, and they're looking at the same data the same way. The same data set by 3 data scientists can be looked into a completely different way. And that's the flexibility we offer. So we take that data, and you can take the asset framework and mold it in a different way. You can create the different view, and boom, it goes to the molecular cell biologist, data scientist versus a building management system. Maybe the same data. And that's the crux of the problem that I think we believe that we have a solution to. I think it's a very unique thing that what we are talking here about. And we did this together with Microsoft and our customers. So summarizing what I just said so far, we're trying to reduce this 80% wasted time, making it a repeatable story, so you are not doing it over and over. That's number one. Number two is that once you create that infrastructure called PySystem, and then you can use it for almost any analytics work, not just for one type of data scientist. So that's the thing. And then this PyIntegrator, it goes through a process called cleanse, augment, shape, and transmit to take that context data and move into an analytics ready data set. Okay, so that's kind of the story. So we were announcing here the PyIntegrator from Microsoft Azure, also available. This was only available on the public Azure, but now it's available on the Azure government. And then with working with Cortana Intelligence and Power BI and Power BI Pro. Very, very excited with the Power BI Pro that's got announced at the US government. And then we are also announcing a joint OSIsoft Microsoft Red Carpet Incubation Program. And that's we already have several customers in here, but we love to work with some customers in this space. So, so come on and talk to us afterwards, going into deeper. So let's go deeper. It's supposed to be a technical talk, so we'll go deeper a little bit more. And if you think that we're going too deep, just stop us. Or if we're not going too deep, also ask us. We can go as much deep as you want. So let's take a couple of seconds now on the technical architecture. Talking about the sensors. Connectors. So almost any sensor, anything that emits time series data can be collected with the PySystem. PySystem connectors, PySystem interfaces. Difference between interfaces and connectors. Interfaces have been in place for over 20 plus years. Connectors are relatively new for us. Connectors brings automatically the context from the source system. Okay. So you have BACnet-based systems running on your Johnson controls or Schneider or something, and you connect with the Pi connector, the BACnet. It will actually bring in the raw data, but also the context about the sensors, all the additional data that is needed. And it's done over and over. So which means they change something, we, again, bring it back. So that's that. On the middle, the concentric circles. The bottom one is PySystem or PyData Archive, proprietary time series database. Runs all the way from Microsoft Windows thing on the edge. We're actually running on an Intel Gateway even, to all the way into the cloud on the VMs. And we are also working with Microsoft, another platform as a service offering. So that's the infrastructure. Product is Microsoft Azure. And now if you go back into what Scott Guthrie said in his talk, that what happened, why did it happen, and all those predictive, prescriptive, you have those analytics of the data scientists giving you that answer. But what good is that if they keep on giving that, but they're not using it on the operation side to make it better? And that's why we actually bring that insight back into the PySystem. So this is a very key, all the way from the Azure Cortana, and that predictions or whatever the data scientist is telling us that they can predict comes back to the same thing. Okay, so now you have a past, present, and the future data all in the one infrastructure. Yes, sir.
On the sensory data, are you using SNMP to transfer that, and that's how you know what the context is, or are there different protocols for instruments?
Thank you. So the question was, do we support SNMP as one of the protocols? Yes, we have over 600 protocols that we support, and SNMP is one of them. Okay, so if you have tools that you can collect data in that. Okay, we actually, towards the end, maybe we'll show them at techsupport.osisub.com, the URL.
Okay.
So that's, you can go and see what are the things we support. If you go to osisub.com and click on the tech support, you will see that list. Any other questions? So data gets collected both hybrid and in Azure. This entire system runs on Azure Government today. Okay, so there is an entire thing that this entire slide runs on Azure Government. Okay, so there is no gaps in this whole end-to-end story. And of course, it runs also on public Azure. So there are certain things, now we're going to deeper. Some things are available, some things are coming in production. We support SQL Data Warehouse, and it's available on the Azure Government. Azure Data Lake, we also support SQL Azure. But more importantly, the streaming integrators that's coming in through Event Hub end of this quarter. So that's second quarter 2017. We'll have Event Hub and IoT Hub support. So if you're doing an IoT project and you want to use IoT Hub as part of other things, the same thing we'll support. Okay. Any of you actually worked with the Azure, especially any of these two technologies I'm talking about? SQL Data Warehouse, Azure ML, maybe Event Hub. Okay, so we'll go a little bit more deeper on that. So with that, before I go into more slides, I thought that we will make this a little bit, I'll do the slides, a couple of slides. Are you going to do the slides? Okay, okay. So what we will, Lily will go into more deeper into that, and I'll come back and summarize what she did. We'll start from a solar panel and then go deeper. So again, make this interactive, ask her the questions, and you want to switch? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, good morning. So what I'm going to show you is that, we talk about IoT sensors and stuff. So here I have a picture of our solar array. It's actually located in Texas. We're sending the data up to Azure environment. So if you have Azure Government, you have a VM, you can install a Pi system and collect the data there and bring it back down. So we're visualizing our tools to Azure. So we're accessing Pi Corsair to the Azure environment. So I'm going to just kind of briefly show you, we build complex solutions for our customers. But for the demo purpose, we've narrowed it down to kind of show you a simple overview of how you can visualize your solar farm data. So here you can see, we have a simple trend. The nice thing about the trend is that, if we want to dive deeper, we can click on it, we can make it interactive. And the way to access Pi Corsair is that it's built on HTML5. So any modern browser, you can access it. So, just like you're here at this conference, you might not bring your laptop, but you have a smartphone. So if you need to kind of troubleshoot and know what's going on at your site, you can just pull up your phone and actually access this and have this data at your hand. So I'm going to show you to just dive in the data a little bit. I have 7 days worth of data visualizing here in a trend. But what if I want to kind of just dive deeper more? Well, I have a few ways to select and change my time. So there's some default time changes that you can select. If I click on the 7 days on the bottom, I can kind of use some of those default and say, let me look at the past 8 hours. Well, it's solar array data. So if I look at the past 8 hours, that means I'm looking before the sunrise. So I'm unlikely going to see that much data, right? But what if I want to kind of look at a monthly report view, right? So I want to kind of define my own time. So if you look at the bottom, the left, and the right side, there's timestamps. We allow you to go and put in your own timestamp. Let's say I want to see it in the beginning of the year. So I'm going to put January 1st, 2017 in there, and I change my time. Now I can have data from the beginning of this year and see how that is interactive. Maybe if I bring the data in and take advantage of Cortana intelligence, I can bring in predictive data in, and maybe I want to see data in the future. So for the end time, I'm going to actually change it. So I have the flexibility to put absolute time or relative time. So in relative time, what I'm going to do is, just like you use Excel, you will say now to mean time now. But for us, star means now. So I'm going to say star plus 1D, meaning a day, meaning tomorrow. Okay, so then I can change my data and I can see data in the future if I wanted to. So that's how interactive it is, that you can bring data that way.
So just a couple of things is that since it's this being videotaped and this is available, we are showing you all the sample data. So come and talk to us if you are working with an agency or working with any customers and go into deeper. So we will show you more realistic things in there. As you can see, the solar data doesn't change that much, but in real life it does change. So a couple of things here. So remember my slide all the way from the left to right. In this case, the interface was connected to the solar panel, probably through a Modbus interface. The data is coming in through the connector all the way into a Pi system on Azure. And then from there, what she's showing is the core site. The whole service is running in the Azure. So that's kind of the end-to-end story.
Yep. So the other thing is that on my bottom, I'm showing you weather data collecting from NOAA. So we talk about sensors. You have different types of sensors. We have over 500 interfaces and connectors that we can bring sensors in different ways. So we went out to the NOAA website. We brought that data in, and we're visualizing all your time series data along with your metadata that you need to just have one holistic view. So if I tap on any of our dynamic icons, we call it, where you have data movement, you can actually expand it up and then bring in a trend. So I'm going to just tap on the NOAA data so that I can just show you that, even though I display it in a table format, I really wanted to see it in trend. By just double tapping on it, I instantly bring up a trend that allows me to dive the data. So if I'm looking into my phone, I can use those pinch move and kind of just dive in and zoom in into the data and kind of troubleshoot an issue at my fingertips. So let me just go back to the previous view and just show you one other thing. So right above my picture, you'll see that I have a visual icon that's showing that I'm generating data. Okay, I have it green. So when it's at night, this actually will trigger to turn black, right? So let me just tap on it and see how that data is doing. So I'm going to bring up my trend again. So I'm going to zoom in more, and you can see that, at one timestamp that you might have data start generating, and then when data stops, and then during my transition, you can see that the bottom, when it goes to the bottom, at probably around 8 p.m., that's when my power generation goes down, and that's where I'm not generating power. One other thing I want to show is that the nice thing about this is that, I'm showing, when you're trying to collect a lot of data, so we have solar array farm. So I have different solar arrays across, right? I don't want to build a display every time I'm going to see this data. I want to be able to use this display once and just see it across. So we've created what we call a template, which is a cookie cutter of data streams that you want to see and visualize, and you want to just kind of swap that data in and out. So right above where I have asset, I'm going to click on a drop down, and you can see I bring up the swap asset option. I'm looking at array 22, but maybe I want to see array 1. So I'm going to go to array 1, and you can see that now I'm looking at data where there's an alert. There's something going on with array 1 that is not, there's no data. I have a visual alarm going off so that my operator can go and troubleshoot more. There's a question in front.
Yeah, when you're saying trend, what does that really mean? Is it something that's said and you see it across the graph? Or for me, trend means that it's sort of wavering between what's acceptable, scientifically acceptable, which is a p.05, right? But if you're looking, that would be a trend, whereas if you're looking at a p.0003, that's not a trend. That actually happens. That is exactly what's going on.
Yes. So what she's showing you is what has happened. So this is the sensor data that actually got collected and showing it up here. What we didn't show you here, do you have any trend, suppose the prediction, as you're talking about, it gets put back into the system as future data. So we'll be able to, I'll actually come to that as a customer case study, where they're actually using the same trend to also plot what can happen. So if there's a pump failure, yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we support all of those scenarios.
So yeah, in this one,
That's
what
a
I
good point,
train is the data that that's collected and it's being historized and streaming through real time. So I mean, you can go through your data and you can kind of, where the data scientist part comes in, I'll kind of deep dive a little bit more when we get to that aspect. So now I'm going to kind of change my view. So like PyCourse is great to visualize my operation data, right? I talk about how to templatize so that you can build up and define those data streams that you want to see across all your solar farm. So I'm going to switch over to our asset framework structure. So when you bring out time series data, you only understand that data stream if you work on it, right?
It's a very high resolution, yes, it's somehow.
Okay, I will try. Okay, so hopefully this is a little bit better. So what we've built is that we've built Pi Asset Framework that allows you to contextualize that data, right? So from someone who doesn't not familiar with the data stream, they want to kind of see a tree view. So if we look at the left panel, you can see that we're building a tree view of regions, completed solar farm arrays, down to the number of solar arrays.
Maybe increase that a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay. So we're kind of looking at solar array 1, and you can see that this is built upon a template. And we'll dive more in, and this is how you're going to help contextualize and build your visual easier that way, right? So you can, in a way, from data scientist standpoint, it's normalizing that across, right?
So this is what we're calling about the volume of the data. So now she was working with one solar array, but in real life, there are probably thousands of that just in that field. So that's what the templates help you in there, okay? And now she's going into the variety of data that solar panel, we were looking into one type of data for that trend. But in that field itself, there may be other things that we are collecting that may not be same as the data that's coming in from the solar array. So that's the variety of that data. And we'll come to the velocity next.
So looking at the array, if you look at the right pane, this is the attribute. It's a mix of time series data stream along with those metadata, right? So maybe you want to know about the manufacturer and the model. So I'll show you later on in Power BI why that's important to give you a holistic view. Okay, I'm going to kind of just show you if I switch from array 1 to 10, you can kind of get a view of how that data is when you go and change from 1 to 10. So then you can view your data again, and it's going to populate, and you have a view from the Pi System Web Explorer. I'm going to just quickly change to the template so you can see that, how easy it is to just kind of, we say within seconds or even minutes, to kind of see your data and build your data that way, right? If you templatize it, or if you add another solar farm or even a new solar panel, right? All you have to do is say, add a new element and apply that template, and you have data start collecting at that minute you apply. So.
Yeah, so as the data coming in, you can also have your calculations that's coming in and connecting. So that's this system also allows that.
Yep, so we done a few simple calculations, just like revenue. If you put power back on the grid, you get certain payback, right? So maybe you can pull that payback data from business intelligence tool and integrate it here, and then do some analytics and calculate how much of that revenue you can make from that generation. So I'm going to switch gear a little bit. I'm going to go show you Pi Integrated for Microsoft Azure. And this is where we talked about how we're going to help clean the data for data scientists use. Okay, so here.
So as you can see, that it's the same same context, same things that you're seeing. Now, based on your one type of data scientist, you might actually use this tool to send the data in certain way, and then another person will come in. But the fundamental, we call it operation side or OT side, that has already been built, the solar panels or the data sources, the context, and the insights. Now you're taking it and putting it in different ways in the cube.
So you can also think of this tool as a merger of OT data with IT, right? So now we're going to move to the IT side and talk about what business intelligence tools that you can use to leverage these data, right? There was a question asked before that, do you take all the data or can you mix and match and take a little bit to just kind of determine those outliers, right? So again, left pane is your tree view. You can see what element you want or what asset you want, and then select those data stream, which is your attribute, right? Whether it's time series data or metadata, and then you bring it in the asset shape. So maybe you don't want to bring everything in, and then you would just deselect and just delete them. And this is where you can pick and choose that way. And then also, if you build it based on a template, then it can go and search and find that, hey, you have 25 related templates. Do you want to build them all in? So if we're thinking about bigger scale solar array, that if we put it in everyone's rooftop, right? Now that solar panels are a little bit affordable and we can collect more solar generation that way, we can talk about thousands to millions of customers, and we don't want to individually select it. We want it to find it and bring that data in. So that's how on the right side we're finding that, hey, we found a match for the template. Do you want to bring all these data in? And you can choose and select. So if I want to, I'm going to go ahead and select next. And this is the view that you get, right? From a data scientist, this is what you want. You want to see this data. This is the columns you want to bring in so that you can do more with the data. So I'm going to kind of show you edit value mode. This is where we talk about those outliers, how you can eliminate. We kind of say we kind of mold it in. So maybe if you know the outliers is a short second, right? So maybe in that case, you want to, when you bring the data into interpolation, you want high fidelity data. You want to bring sample every minute, right? But if it's a large outlier, then you maybe want to sample over hours time frame, right? And this is how you can mold the data. Or if you just want to see your raw data, then you can just say, I want to see the exact value, and just bring the raw data in that way. So this is where the flexibility comes in. So now that I've chosen what data and how my columns are, I can say apply my start and end time, and then I'm going to hit next. So now that I'm happy with this data, I can say, well, go publish this. And this is where we kind of transition and leveraging Cortana Intelligence, right? As a suite of products, which includes SQL Data Warehouse. So we're going to publish this data in SQL Data Warehouse so we can take advantage of the other Cortana suites of like machine learning and Power BI. So then once I publish, I say, okay, confirm. And next I'm going to switch gear after I publish the data that it goes back to the view. So this is the view that Prabal mentions, for data scientists, they can go and configure the view so that they can trigger and do what they need to cleanse this data. So I'm going to show you that now that I've published this data, I'm going to leverage Cortana and visualize my data on Power BI Pro. Okay, so I'm going to switch over and show you a Power BI display. So here you can see that, I really want to kind of see all my data, right? So I actually just train everything. I trained when I started collecting data in January 2016 to now. You can see how easy it is to train that data and just show it on Power BI. So within it, I want more information about, we talk about some analytics. There's different ways of doing the analytics. We can bring it to Power BI. We can go to our business system and bring that business data in. So in the table, if you look, we have a table of our current power along with our revenue. So we know how much we're making and putting back in the grid for that generation, right? So, and then also, I mentioned about a holistic view. So, when we're looking at generation, we're talking about process efficiency. But maybe I want to kind of dive into the asset health. Well, how do I know which model works better? If you think about cost-wise, sometimes are they the same? Do you get the same value back for So if we're talking about return on investment, maybe I want to dive a little bit more. So on my bottom left, what I've done is
So
just
before we go, we now shift into Power BI. Actually, have you actually played with Power BI? Any of you? Okay, so well, you did. Okay, so did you do the desktop version or the Power BI Pro or desktop version? Yeah, that's an amazing tool. What we are showing here is that also the Power BI Pro is now also available from Azure Government. So or for that government customers, so that's actually there. By the way, your resolution is probably that's pretty high. That's the other thing. It needs to be brought down to that. But otherwise, these are very pretty screens. But so that's what we are. So this is overall thing is in this one, it's running from the cloud and getting the data either from the cloud or on-premise and other sources. So Pi Integrator has pushed this data into different destinations, including Event Hub and SQL Data Warehouse, and then Power BI Pro is picking that up, just to give you the background.
Okay. So on the bottom of my report, I'm actually going to show you how I'm looking at the asset health of my solar panels, right? So if I compare different models against the generation and looking at a time. So I want to kind of know like at what time frame is high generation. So maybe at that, it's going to give me some ideas of triggering machine learning to do my prediction. So if I'm thinking of renewable energy, of when to kind of switch over to use renewable energy, that's where I'm going to leverage machine learning. And then I'll also show you like a comparison between different manufacturing and their model. So if they have different models, among manufacturing, what is the real difference, right? Sometimes it's hard to see, but if you do have different panels, you can go and instantly and take a look. So if we look at the M motors, there's one particular model that's significantly higher. So the nice thing about Power BI is that, I don't know if you guys play with pivot tables and pivot tools where you have those slicers. So on the bottom right, I put some slicers in there. But with Power BI, you no longer need those slicers. You can actually tap within the graph. So if I go and tap in that motor with a model 74656, it's going to actually change my report view to concentrate on that. So I no longer need to put a slicer for that to look at my report and to just dive into what I want to see. So, and then there's always a question about conditional-based maintenance. When you service a product, you bring a maintenance crew out. It might be expensive to do that, right? And you really want to know, is it worth it? So what we've done is that we kind of made a comparison and say, well, this model is particularly higher. Let's go check the service stick. And we noticed that this particular model was serviced twice a year compared to the other models. Therefore, it performs better. So it tells us actually putting a crew out there to service every 6 months is worth it instead of doing an annual service, so that you can kind of justify your cost for your maintenance crew.
So are you going to show other things here?
Yeah,
show them
so,
about the tools.
Yep, I am going to just show, if you prefer the slicers, I have the slicers there. I'm going to just switch over and just say, select a month. Let's look at January. So if I select January, it's going to, what data do you think it's going to bring back if I say I want to see January? So, well, it's going to bring me all of January. So depending on what data I bring in, I say I started in 2016. So it brought me January 2016 to January 2017. So that you can kind of compare the month to month instantly that way. But if I want to just concentrate on January 2017, I can just also select that and just have that showing me a monthly report. So you can see that from the Power BI report, you can have a daily report, a weekly report, a monthly report, an annual report, all in one view.
How's the data stored for this? Is this off of a relational database?
Yeah, so in the last screen I show you with our Pi integrator. So we went and grabbed data from our Pi system, and then we publish into SQL Data Warehouse. And then from SQL Data Warehouse, you can make a connection using your Power BI to that SQL Data Warehouse and bring that data in.
Yeah, I'll come to that architecture thing. So just this is basic Power BI we're now showing you. So in the Power BI, you have different sources and different ways of accessing the data. You can get simple things like put it in your local file and all. You can also, coming from the SharePoint team sites, and then databases. So the one that we are showing here is actually with the platform as a service type approach with Microsoft. So we are putting this in Azure SQL Data Warehouse. Equally, PyIntegrator can also put it in HD Insight to the Azure Data Lake, and Azure Data Lake is also available in there. We also support Azure SQL database, and also the streaming data set. I didn't go into the more details in there, so we can also go into a streaming data set that's actually will take the data from various systems. Okay, go ahead. A couple of questions. Fantastic. So I will actually come to that in my portion. I'll show you what Cortana brings you, but it's a very flexible system. Cortana Intelligence, you can have your own R routines and Pythons and all that you can add to that. We using predominantly Cortana Intelligence for these things. Next.
Okay, the question is, you mentioned like, okay, I can do month-to-month comparison. Do you have expression built in for year-to-date, month-to-date as well?
Excellent.
Okay. So when you bring the data in, it's the whole data set. So you can kind of put the slices to do that, right? But within that, once you bring all the data in, also with Power BI Pro Online, just to ask questions so that you can kind of put those questions and change the view of that. So and also before you bring it into the SQL in the PyIntegrator aspect, you can actually change and say, this is how I want to see the data by month to month and year to year. So it's within,
Yeah.
so we'll show it in 1 second that you can say, I want to add these time columns, and you can slice it that way.
It's pretty low.
Any other question?
Nope. A little bit better? Can read it? Okay. Okay, so now we are back here into the same system. Now we are going into the next step.
column.
Yeah, so also on here, I can have different ways. I can actually take the raw data and pass it here. I can also put it in the nice table column, as you're saying, interpolated data that you might need. And then we can add from the time column. That's what you are asking, I guess. Yeah, so to that thing. So we are trying to make it easier. And this is in the incubation program. It's Red Carpet, as you heard, Red Carpet incubation program. We are trying to get to the more customers and more partners quickly so that we can get that feedback. It's very easy for us to add other features in here. So as we learn with the data scientists, we do not have data scientists in our company. We're trying to be a product company. We're working with partners, and we're working with Microsoft for that part. So as we learn it, we add it. But as you can see, what you were asking, we provide that as part of the tool. It's making it easy. Yeah, making it easier. Since we are here, let's just go through this. So let's go back into what I did. I took the asset view from here. Click on the regions. Click on the region. So click like the drop down. So and yeah, just complete it. So this is the hierarchy of the context that we were showing before. So that's the different ones. Click on array 1. And these are the sensor data or calculated data. If you're actually having future data coming back, it'll also be available here. And so that's the context, that's the part of those things. So what she has done, she has taken a mix and match. So go ahead and drop something and to just show that.
So, well, let me delete a few things. So I'm going to add visibility back in. So you just drag and drop.
So it's the cube or that data shape is just now getting created. And then using the templates, what she can do is that she can come in here, and if I'm using the template, and or I can use, so I can have my templates, or I can go based on that. I can add filters at this level. So I'm going to just go to the next one. It found my match. I can also change the time. So for example, I can actually say, send me every minute data. Why stop there? I can actually go into every 1 second data, or whatever minute I want. Again, this is the variety of the data, and this is the velocity of the data. Okay, so different data sets will have different ways of bringing it in. If the pump data is coming in every second, of course I would like to take the every second data. This building may be only measuring its temperature every 15 minutes. There's no point sending every second data over there unless it actually changes and something happens. So you can actually make your own. So this tool is given to the data scientists. This tool is given to the people that's actually running the IoT analytics. So that's what we are trying to make it easier. You have the data, you have what you want to build. Now this tool, the Pi Integrator from Microsoft Azure, makes that translation very easier, and it actually runs over and over. So now I'm here, and then I'm going to go to the next. And then I added my columns here, day of the week, and other columns I added. I'm going to cancel that again. Then I'm going to go into the next, and this is the destination. So in this case, we have a SQL data warehouse on Azure that we are using. We can go into and add different types of destinations. So, wrong one. Sorry. So I can create targets that way. So I can use that to create targets to Azure SQL Data Warehouse, Azure Data Lake, and you will see soon the Event Hub and the IoT Hub. It's coming in here. So that's directly that SQL Data Warehouse will take you to the Azure Gov destination where the data is there and residing. Now, coming back to the question that we got, how the Power BI is getting the data. Power BI can get data from almost any of these sources. Again, it depends on your architecture and depends on what you're using. Okay, so we're trying to use off-the-shelf ways of doing it. Question?
Speak a little bit to the Event Hub.
Yes, I can. Yes. Okay.
Like, why would I put there instead of this?
Good. Yeah, I'll come back to the Lambda architecture. Okay. You have other things you're going to demo?
No.
Okay. So switch back to me, and then I'll answer those questions. Okay, so we try to show you end-to-end on this architecture. So she started with a solar panel, and which actually collected the data from one of those connectors, showed up in the Pi core site running on Azure. You looked at the data. Then we used the integrator, the tool that we showed, to push the data to SQL Data Warehouse, this one. And then we picked it up from Power BI and showed you that thing. The question came in here is that I have this Event Hub over here, and why we need it. And I'll come back to that. So finishing off the architecture end-to-end, you actually have the data source. If you look at some of these slides, the older ways of doing IoT analytics, you will see that the ingest happens at this stage in the cloud-based analytics world. So ingestion happens here. We switch that to have the preparation before the ingestion. That's a very, very critical thing, because we are capturing the knowledge of the operation side along with the tools that data scientists need to do machine learning in here. So that's where the views are getting created at the operation side and then getting pushed. So by the time you actually bring in here, it's actually the prepared data. Okay, so that's a very, very key thing. Then we also showed you that this predictions from either Power BI or something, this comes back into the system of record as even there. So Cortana Intelligence. If you look at the Cortana Intelligence today, you will see that it has the data lake and the SQL data warehouse and other type of data stores. Of course, SQL Azure, we also use SQL Azure in that. Data Lake Services, we support it, and you can go into HD Insight, and then SQL Data Warehouse. I won't go into more details. It's a awesome platform as a service that we have been very, very positive about it. Now, coming back to your question, so I'll actually switch gears in there. It's actually part of what in the world of IoT analytics is known as Lambda architecture. There's a hot path and a cold path. Many people call it batch path and there. So on our batch path, as you are sending the data to the SQL Data Warehouse, you will be refreshing the data at certain rate. You will be actually taking the historical data and moving it in here. If you are trying to do some things like streaming data set on Power BI, for example, you actually want to see the data that what she was showing, the data is actually moving, then you need some place where you will have to go and do that, making that. So that's where the Event Hub comes in, okay? And also, it's also closely related to Azure Stream Analytics. In the open source world, it'll be Storm and other areas.
Or real like weather or some real-time events.
So that's where the architecture comes in, okay? So that's where we work with the architects from the customer and see which one you need. It's that you have in your belt a lot of tools. You don't use the same tool for all the things. We're trying to be tool neutral, as you can say in there, okay?
And the other question is that you said it's coming to the Gov Cloud, not there? Or?
No. GovCloud is Event Hub. Our product is in preview mode. Our implementation of the Event Hub.
Okay, how you ingest data from there?
Pi Integrator for Microsoft Azure, that one is in the technology preview mode. The Event Hub is there in the cloud, yes.
How many parameters can you check at once?
How many parameters you can check at once to run the Pi Integrator?
With the Cortana?
With the Cortana Intelligence. Okay, great. Okay.
You have to set up a design, correct?
Yeah, so I haven't seen any limitations on that. I'm sure Microsoft team can go into more detail on the Cortana, but so far with the customers, we're talking about millions and millions of data points. I mean, we're working with one of the largest oil and gas companies in the world. No issues. No issues from either the Pi system, the integrator, or the Cortana Intelligence on any limitations so far. I mean, again, but there must be something. So if you want, we'll connect you to the Microsoft team running the Cortana. Question?
Yeah, when you're using Event Hub for near real-time data, how does the publish process change since you're not publishing using like SQL Data Warehouse or whatever for your product?
Absolutely. So nothing changes. So in the targeting of that, go back to the target, and I'll switch to you. So in the target, once this technology preview goes and makes it into production, they will see Event Hub as a destination. And they select it, and it will say streaming, which means that it will stream at that time. Okay. But no, what we're trying to make the life of the customer or the partners very simple, so they use the same tools. It's just the destination changes. Okay. We also will support IoT Hub, so if Azure IoT anybody is using, we'll also support that. And also Kafka on Azure. Okay, come back to me. Okay, so from the demo, it's actually nice to summarize that demo. So this entire demo, this entire Pi infrastructure is now available on Azure Government. So there's nothing all the technologies that we are using is actually there. We also publish the data, and you can build your thing. So it's almost like a service that you can use, although it's running on infrastructure as a service at this moment. And then we're looking into CoreSite as a service. Then we went into the Pi Integrator as a tool. And in the Pi Integrator as a tool, what we did is that we published that data into various destinations. In this case, we used a SQL Data Warehouse, which is also available right now in there. And then last but not the least, we took this and used the Power BI. Did not use this on this demo particular, but Power BI Pro is available for government, so you can also support the streaming part of that. I think is not available. I think at this time, but we'll go in there. If there's no other questions, then we will. How much time we have? 5 minutes, okay, great. So there was actually a presentation, one of these, I don't remember which one, actually used the Carnegie Mellon as a example in this tech summit. I actually personally even worked on this with Lily also worked. They're doing a great stuff in that their buildings, collecting the data, and through the machine learning. This actually will be a good case study also for you to look at. It's a public case study on Microsoft site. They're looking and implemented the Pi system with Power BI and Azure ML and using the previous version. They started with even the Pi integrator was had a different code name in there, and so did Azure ML. It's a great story. I also like another story. It's a small company, Deschutes Brewery in Pacific Northwest in Bend, Oregon. They started with the Pi journey quite some time. And think about a brewery using Azure ML. I mean, who do you have thought about it? So they did. Oh, actually, I have to switch on my. So will the video play again? Is that okay? Okay, I'm getting a good hand, so let's hear from them.
Hi, my name is Brian Favor, and I am the brewmaster of operations for Deschutes Brewery. I think people have different ideas. What is a brewer's job? And really what a big part of our job is just to ensure the quality that we want to hit on a day-to-day basis. We know financially we need to be able to take on this investment. To build a second brewing production facility is a big undertaking and a big financial investment. So it's very important that we're able to really maximize our capacity and efficiencies. And so that's when we reached out to OSIsoft.
Here at OSIsoft, we really believe that if we can get your process data, your sensor-based data to you at your fingertips, you can transform how you operate your business. You can solve problems that just wouldn't be capable without the data. Once we supplied the historical data from the Pi system that defines 3 or 4 years of brew making production, we supplied that to the Cortana Intelligence Suite. We're able to use that to define a model that actually predicts an event that happens within the fermentation process.
We're making decisions on multiple decisions on an hourly basis on how to run our operation. So if we don't have the data to back that up and support it, it leads us definitely in a bind. This project, the relationship with OSIsoft and Microsoft, has been nothing short of tremendous. The Pi integrator for Azure has helped us to achieve this predictive analytics to help us make the best beer we can.
So that's the type of customers or the roles that we are targeting, like a brewmaster in a brewery or like operations manager in a power plant or something. They do not know about Cortana Intelligence. They do not know about Azure. They do not know about Pi integrator for Microsoft Azure, but they can use it. They have the problem, and that can be solved. And so that's if one takeaway, I have a couple of takeaways for you, but basically, if I'm looking at some takeaways from this, is that these tools, as what we have worked together, can make these things happen in a very, very quick fashion. This end-to-end project or the implementation with Deschutes Brewery took us about 3 weeks, end-to-end. I mean, about a few days to get the things installed, starting getting the data. They get the historical data. They had a Delta V system, one of our partners, that has an embedded Pi system. So we connected through the connectors into the Pi system, moved the data through the integrators to the Azure, and the data scientists from Microsoft, great data scientists came in, worked together, had a regular meeting, and at the end of it, they have a process which, think about this, it's almost like your real-time traffic system. As you are actually getting in the car, you have a way, or at least for me, living in the Bay Area, I have one way of going to the office. Then some app tells me, hey, don't go on this one, take the other side. It's actually real-time analytics with predictive that's coming into me. This is what's happening in real world. So they are actually looking at those data points as they're collected, in a streaming way that Cortana gets that data, runs the web services, machine learning web services, moves that data back into the Pi system so they can actually see on one screen that where to make that shift in their fermented process. So batch phase transition happens between manual and now they're actually depending on the Cortana to know when to ship or when to do that. So it's a great story. It's a small thing. We're taking their entire story end to end, putting in a nice HoloLens package on top of that, and taking with us to Hanover. Hanover Messe is one of the largest industrial conference in the world. We're in the Microsoft booth next month, so we'll showcase that. There will be a public case study. But there are many other customers that I'm not publicly allowed to say because it's getting videotaped, that we're also in this phase. Come and talk to us if you're interested, or if you know somebody that will be interested in working. End to end, this implementation used Pi System on Azure, Pi Integrator from Microsoft Azure, SQL Data Warehouse, machine learning, and Azure Data Factory. And I did not cover Azure Data Factory, and I see there, is because Azure Data Factory is another one that we use to move those machine learning web services and get that data back through our RDMavis interface. Any questions? So end-to-end, what happened, I'm sorry, I apologize for that part, but this is how they used to run the brewery. That's a board. And now that is what you were asking before, is that the prediction that's coming in from Cortana, and as they're going in, they're shifting to make that. So purposely phased out a little bit because they don't want to give up their things, but that's what it is. Okay. So I've done that. And so that's the last part, is the Azure Data Factory. That's another great service that we use quite a lot. So that's my final slide on the takeaway. So if you're taking anything takeaway from there, what we tried to show you is that a world of IoT analytics is real. You can go into that today. So there's nothing. But having said that, the data scientist, which is a very, very important job, that we know in this world, spending days, and you actually confirmed it for us, scrubbing terabytes of operational data. So that's one thing. So volume, velocity, and variety of data, all in here, but it's very difficult to do that. Pi System is on Azure. It's integrated with Cortana Intelligence. You can start with the connectors and the Pi System today. Contact us and we'll get you started. And then lastly, Azure Government, and with the Power BI Pro and with all the things, is also real, and you can get started with that. And that's the slide that we need to end it off. Any other questions? If there's no other questions, thank you very much.